Hi there, I'm Gail and this video is showing you from start to finish how I do portraits like this from reference photos like this. So I use traditional techniques such as I might use for portraits like that, and what I love about these soft toy portraits is it's a great way to show all the traditional materials and techniques that you can use but with a fun subject. So this is Soggy Rabbit and his friend Bestie, and this video is quite slow, it's step by step in real time, so it's about an hour. If you're looking for the live stream fun version with shout outs and all that sort of thing, then that one is available on another video, so have a look on the live playlist. But this video is the slow paced, absolutely all the detail, showing you lots of traditional techniques in a fun way. Okay, so I hope you enjoy and see you at the end. Bye. Right, so there's the basic area that I'm going to be drawing onto. So I start by mapping out the shape. So I've got these two toys together today. Usually I just do one on this size, but as it's Valentine's kind of week, I thought it might be nice to do to celebrate, well, in this case it's friendship. So these two rabbits have known each other for a long time. The grey one is called Soggy Rabbit, and the grey one used to belong to my youngest child, who's now 9, and he used to suck its ear, and therefore it became quite soggy, and that's why it got the name Soggy Rabbit, and that's why I called my business Soggy Rabbit. And one day in Bristol we were walking down by the harbour side and we came across this big brown rabbit that someone had dropped, and we tried to advertise it locally to see, because it was a really beautiful and great condition rabbit that I thought someone would really be missing. I know my Tom would really miss Soggy Rabbit if anything happened to him. But no one came forward, so we have adopted this rabbit. But we don't know much about him. We have no idea, well, I say him, we don't actually know whether this rabbit is male or female or neither or both. So we don't have a name for the rabbit, and so we need to find a name for it. So on the live stream tomorrow I'm going to be inviting people to give the rabbit a name. That live stream will be on YouTube, on my Soggy Rabbit channel. Right. So I don't know if you can see this, I think you probably can. So I'm just really doing the big shapes, and this is what you do, as I said, if you're drawing like a dog, and you start to look for, I'm looking at the proportions, the relative size of their heads. So the brown rabbit has got lovely big head and body, and makes Soggy Rabbit look quite small. I'm just getting that squint. It's very good to squint when you're drawing, from picture or from life, and you can simplify the shapes by squinting. It really helps you not be distracted by details, because it cuts out a lot of the information that you're getting to your eyes. And I've put them in this position because I think it's quite nice to show their friendship like this. I'm looking at the bottom of Soggy Rabbit's ear, and how it lines up with the brown rabbit's paw. And there's the Soggy Rabbit's shoulder. So the way I do this is I map it out in pencil first, and then I go over it with, I'm going to get out this traditional ink dipping pen and go over the pencil lines, and then I'm going to rub the pencil lines out with a putty rubber. So I keep an eye on the proportions, making sure I've got space for that title. You can see that still fits okay, so I've got a bit of a bigger gap here at the bottom. And the brown rabbit is slightly in profile, so I try and keep a note of the sort of structure of the toys. And looking very carefully for the position of the eye. When I go in with the ink pen, it's going to be really a chance to refine those shapes. Okay, so here's Soggy Rabbit's arm here, and then if you look at the reference photo at the top, you'll see Rabbit's arm in slightly higher up. Okay, and then we've got the brown rabbit's lovely big paw. Love these. I think they're both Jellycat rabbits. I really like Jellycat toys. They're such a nice shape. And there's Soggy Rabbit's got both paws, both feet like that. Soggy Rabbit's got quite different shaped feet with a little bit of a leg. And bum. And he's got a little label, which I think is quite nice. Actually, he's got his tail showing, which is very nice. So I might miss out the label. I think I will, and I'll just show his tail. Okay, so looking at the negative shape in here under Soggy Rabbit's arm, which is a nice thing to make sure I've got that in. Now, Soggy Rabbit's eyes are there. And his little indignant face. Okay, so let's have a little look at these shapes here. Right. So now I'm looking, I've got this arm is far too low. You can just see that that should be right up here. Rubber. That looks better. Soggy Rabbit's bum looks right now. So when I'm correcting shapes, I find it really good to just get something down to start with. And then you can always change them, but it's always good to, I find it's good to kind of work on somebody's getting a bit distracted. It's not very good, is it? I'm going to have to get a hang of that when I start streaming. But when you're correcting something that doesn't look quite right, there's usually lots of different ways you could correct it, and it's worth not jumping into the first one. So if you're drawing like a person and you see their face and you think their head looks too big on their body, you can either shrink the head or make the body bigger, and they'll both correct that. But when you're drawing anything, it's really worth stopping for a minute, I think, and deciding how you're going to correct it, because you can just throw everything else out if you're not careful. Right, so I'm just taking a little kind of moment to make sure Soggy Rabbit basically looks like himself, which he does. And just remembering that, you know, like humans, he's pretty symmetrical really, so making sure I've got that line down the middle of his face. And this rabbit here, line down there. And they're really kind of nuzzled up against each other. Later I will put lots of texture on the rabbits, but right now I'm just deciding the structure. I'm going to put this on, make sure how wide I can make the brown rabbit's ear. So, looking, and goes up to here, this looks okay. And that's just slightly resting on the shoulder there, so it kind of falls. Maybe it could do it a tiny bit longer. And we've got this dark shadow here. Okay, and there's that rabbit's paw. Right, let's just make sure I've got the rabbit's eye in the right place. And there'll be a tiny little hint of an eye here. And then we're going to have a bit more ear here, because this ear goes all the way around like that. And I'm just going to do some things here. Okay, so we're getting there. Right, I think now it's at a stage where I can start inking. Right, so I use, where's my ink gone? Here we are. So I use Dr. Martens. I think it's waterproof, light, fast and waterproof. And when I'm inking, I always keep a pot of water to hand, just so I can rinse out my pen. I use a traditional dipping pen. Right, so there, we don't need that. And the other thing that I use is a spare piece of paper, just to check that the ink isn't too splodgy when it comes straight out of the pot, because sometimes these pens can get quite splodgy. This is the difference between using real traditional materials and Procreate and stuff like that. You get these massive accidents and there's no delete button, so I tend to just check before I touch the page with the inky pen. Right, now I'm going to imagine the light is coming from this side. So you'll notice when I'm doing the lines and the inking, I'm a little bit heavier. So I'm going to go down this side first, because I've just dipped my pen. So I'm going to have a slightly heavier approach and rub it on this side, and then as the pen starts to run out of ink a little bit, I'll go over to this side here where I want a bit of a lighter touch because it's going to be its eye. Because that is meant to be where the light hits. So later on I'm going to go in with a light pen and do the highlights. So for now I'm still really just mapping it. This is like a fold of the ear. So actually in the photo, I don't know if you can see, the light is coming from the other side. The light is coming from the left and the rabbits have got their shadows cast on the right, onto that wall. Okay, so I'm going to put a bit of texture here. And texture really helps to show the form as well. So it helps to show how the fluff kind of rolls round over. Right. And I can put a little bit of hatching here. This is called hatching, just to show where that cast shadow is inside there. And be a bit careful here because I think there might actually be a little bit of daylight that needs to show through here. So, edge of that paw. So whereas Soggy Rabbit's got lovely long arms and quite sort of sausagey, well, they're quite long and thin, more spaghetti arms, and then this brown rabbit has got more sausage. And in the stream tomorrow I'm going to be inviting people to give this rabbit, this brown rabbit, a name. So the theme is going to be all about friendship and the sort of love that happens between friends when we've been through all sorts of experiences together. And I think we're all missing our friends quite a lot at the moment. We're doing lots of Zooming and Xboxing with our friends, but not much in real life. And a lot of us would love a hug like these creatures are managing. Trying to be careful to make some sense of the overlapping sections. And once it's coloured in, that's going to make a lot more sense. So that's Soggy Rabbit's ear. This is the brown rabbit's chin. Rabbit's got a bit of a muzzle and a nose. I'm going to over detail that. Quite distinctive texture, so next time my pen is on a low ebb, I'll go in right. So I've just dipped the pen, so I've got holding here, so it's going to come out pretty. So I'm going to go on to the rabbit's where I want it to be quite defined, and so the rabbit's 2 feet. Here. Show you in a minute. I'll use the shadow. It's called an occlusion shadow. Give a sense of the sitting on the floor, just floating. And they look pretty floaty. Now, so the looks of this. It's actually quite a wide face. Got a bit less ink on some of this. It will look very different once it's got some colour. But especially up there is some shaping going on. I think the people who cut the toys plan very carefully which direction the pile of the fabric is going to go for the fluff, because it makes a big difference to how the toys feel when you stroke them. Right. Another dip, I think. Check it's okay on the paper. Right, let's go in with this time. Go down. Now, because Soggy Rabbit, because the light in the photo is going from the left, and the light in my drawing, I've thrown it to the other side, so it's going to be on the right. So in the photo, I don't know if you can see, Soggy Rabbit's got a shadow, a cast shadow here. But what I'm doing is I'm going to put a cast shadow on the other side, because if the light was coming from this side, this arm will cast a shadow, and these cast shadows really start to help give a sense of what's in front of what. So we've got a cast shadow there, and a cast shadow, quite a substantial one into this rabbit's chin, and not forgetting the texture. Cast shadows, and in the forms, particularly on the side of the form where the shadow is, really quite go to town with this black pen. Just strengthen it there, and quite a heavy shadow here. Soggy Rabbit hopefully is starting to pop forward a bit. Right, let's get that indignant expression. This Jellycat toy that is Soggy Rabbit is probably, in my soft toy portrait business, is probably the most common toy I get asked. A lot of monkeys, a lot of people monkeys. I brought the shoulder a little bit too low, but I can correct that later. Back a bit darker. Right. This is all fur here, quite dark in here, and that will help make the rabbit's face come around like that. And here is Soggy Rabbit's ears. I'm just having a quick check across to the other side. As I mentioned, it's important that these toys are broadly symmetrical, unless they're not. And I'm just going to add a little bit of artistic license here to get the rabbit's ear, and rabbit's ear there. And here goes Soggy Rabbit's bum, which is kind of this shape there. And not
Forgetting Soggy Rabbit's bottom tail, which will go in there very lightly. So we'll have a little bit of a cast shadow under here. Now I'm just looking for areas of deep shadow. So that's the brown rabbit behind Soggy Rabbit. Okay, and put some texture in here. This bit's really quite dark. And Soggy Rabbit's got a different texture. Soggy Rabbit has been very, very well loved, and as a result has quite a sort of matte texture, cuddled to a point of not really being terribly fluffy. And usually at this point I stop and have a cup of tea to let the ink dry. I think actually this ink might be okay. It's quite absorbent paper, and when I've given it a minute I'll be able to start rubbing out the pencil lines. I'll move the camera a little bit so you can really see. And if you want to ask me any questions, you're really welcome. All these techniques are very useful whatever you're drawing, and if you want to draw anything that looks like real life, then the same principles apply, mapping out the big shapes. Squinting, really useful. Okay, now Soggy and Soggy's friends are just about ready. I'm just putting a little shadow in there, trying to make sure that this foot here really feels like it's coming in front. So check with the mount card that we're still alright for proportions. Yep, that looks fine. And now I'm going to use a really quite juicy ink dipping, so it's going to be nice thick ink and dark like that. And I'm doing the shadow now, so this is the shadow where the rabbits touch the surface that they're on, and I'm using freshly dipped pen because I want that to be really quite strong, because this is what kind of grounds them. And it's a very useful trick in your drawing to really give them a bit of weight and stop them feeling like they're floating, if that makes sense, but hopefully so. And I'm just going to rough up this edge here a little bit, and here. So anywhere that I've got really dark shade, I can actually encroach into the form in front. So that is Soggy Rabbit here, and this is the edge of Soggy Rabbit's face. There we go. Right, so there's, I was talking about that roughing up, there's another candidate place where I can do that. I've got a sense on this rabbit that I kind of, there's like a line, I don't want to make it look cross, but there is quite an expressive line there and here. So that will change slightly when I'm adding the colour. Strip up a few of those deep shade areas. Right. So what I'm going to do is just leave that for a couple of minutes, and while the ink is drying, I'm just going to put the lid on my pen. And then during the live stream, when we know the brown rabbit's name, once that's been decided, I will add that in on the bottom as a title. I usually put a heart on the end, or sometimes two. But this is really quite small, it's only A5 size, so half A4 paper in like a piece of printer paper. This is just half that size. Right, and I'm just drying off my pen here. Try and keep my pen dry. I think some people use a bit of oil on their pen nib to help it not go rusty, but I find that works fine. Right, so how dark that water's gone. So I'm going to get this water right out of the way, otherwise I'm going to drop it on something, and start to think about the colour. So another minute or two while that ink is drying, and while I do that I'll show you the colours I'm going to use. So I've got black, which isn't, I'm not going to use much black. These are Derwent drawing pencils. So I've got black for the eyes and the darkest bits. I've got quite a cool brown, this is called chocolate. And that's going to be really good on the brown rabbit, and also I've got a warm brown, so I can kind of vary them a little bit. I might even use a cream, I think, because I can see that lovely kind of mottled fur. I'm quite like to be able to get that. And then for both rabbits I'm going to use this some white pencil, and then later I'm going to put some this Uni Posca pen on to do highlights and texture. Okay, and also I've got some blues. I will just play around with the blues. Soggy Rabbit looks a bit bleached out in that photo, but is actually a really nice pale blue colour. Okay, right, I think we're there. Yep, that feels dry. So, it's one of my favourite bits. Is the putty rabbit. It's such a nice thing. Okay, and I'm going to move it down a little bit. There we are. Don't move that. You can see. There we are. So I won't worry about Soggy Rabbit's nose. We're going to lose that, but we'll get it back later. And just very carefully and gently rubbing out the graphite pencil. I use a really nice soft pencil. I've used 6B, which is really soft and doesn't sort of dent the paper and leaves lovely dark lines, but is also really easy to remove. So different artists have different preferences in terms of pencils. When I'm drawing figures, I quite often use something kind of middle of the road, like a 4B. I should have put my microphone on up here. Whoops. There we go. Okay, don't know if that's any better. Right, let's go and rub out this pencil here. And it's really important to get rid of that graphite, because even if you cover it up with coloured pencil, it can be picked up by the coloured pencil and make it really sort of lose its lovely saturation, so you can get a very kind of grubby looking effect. So I do take a minute to get this off properly. You can see it's coming off very easily. But now you can see why quite often it's a good idea to have a cup of tea to let the ink dry, because if the ink smudges, I have to start again. But there's something rather nice, I think, about that feeling that what you're doing has there's no going back. Okay, so there we go. I can put the putty rubber down, and I'll just take this camera out a tiny bit so you can see the picture. There we go, and I can start colouring now. So this is called blocking in, and I think I'm going to start blocking in the brown rabbit in a sort of warm brown, and I'm trying to start thinking very slightly about the form. So I'm pressing a bit harder in the shadows, although they're going to be quite a bit darker anyway with the, I'll use the chocolate pencil. And I don't worry too much about making it smooth, because I think when you're doing things like soft toys or animals, actually these things, they're not perfect, they're not smooth, they've got some texture, so as long as it looks okay from a distance, I think it's pretty fine. In fact, I think it improves them if they've got a bit of texture. And there's going to be more texture going on because I'm going to be adding, I'm going to be using that white Posca pen, this one here, later to put more texture on. So remembering that we've got the light coming from the right side as we look at it, so I'm going to be pressing a little bit less hard on that side. It's my chance to think about the shape of that rabbit's nose. There we go. Always looking at the picture. I think that brown rabbit has got a slightly smaller nose than I maybe did. Okay. It's got a definite side panel here. So I'm going to make that a little bit darker, which will throw this bit forward a little bit. Okay, that looks more like it. A little bit of dark there to offset Soggy Rabbit, and being very careful not to muddle up which bits are brown and which bits are going to be blue. And here's the brown paw giving Soggy Rabbit a hug. Okay, and then it's just the brown rabbit's ear. And you can see how the brown rabbit has really actually helped to clarify where Soggy Rabbit is. So just by being a strong background, I've picked out the shape of Soggy Rabbit like this, and it's really nice how the two shapes work together. Okay, so there's the first bit, and I'm going to do a little bit of blue on Soggy Rabbit. So don't be alarmed, I'm going to go a little bit bluer than reality. Head to adding some white, and actually I'm just going to cheat a little bit and have a look at Soggy Rabbit and have a look, you can see Soggy Rabbit's nose is quite big and pink. I'll put Soggy Rabbit there. Okay, so and yeah, comes up nearly as high as the eyes. So it's usually quite a slow process at this point, and then it all comes together when you add in the details at the end. So I'm going to go, as I said, a little bit more blue than reality, because by the time I've added in a little bit of white for texture and oh, is that a bit of brown rabbit there? I don't think so. It's going to tone down the blue. So there we go. Once upon a time, Soggy Rabbit was blue, but Soggy Rabbit's had a very exciting life. Soggy Rabbit has actually lived in Dubai for quite a long time, in the hot sun, and in order to stop Soggy Rabbit getting very, very smelly, he used to have regular washes in the washing machine and then hanging out to dry in the baking sun, which killed the bacteria. Okay, I'm going to just make that little area there a bit darker. Okay, so now we've got those main bits. I'm going to give Soggy Rabbit a pink nose. Get us started on that as well. I've got a little bit of blue lingering there. Yeah. Might tone that down a little bit later. It's looking a little bit peach in Soggy Rabbit and not so peach on the drawing. Anyway, and it's quite a triangular. There we go, right. And the brown rabbit has the same coloured nose as well. Pale pink. Okay. Right, and because this is grey paper, I use a white pen to do Soggy Rabbit's tail. Soggy Rabbit's actual tail is not terribly white, so we're going to use a bit of artistic license. Right, and I think I'll just do a sort of light bit of shading just to kind of blend, but also add a bit more character on here. So this bit here would have really caught the light. I'm going to do a bit more of this later. There we go, and here. I'm just zoning in on those areas which will catch the light, like that. So the areas on the right hand side of the picture, or the right hand side of the form. So this rabbit here, just there, that's going to be quite light. Right, so next step is a little bit of dark, I want chocolate. There we go, I've got my chocolate pen. And I'm just going to do a little bit of what's called turning the form. So I'm going to go along the edge which turns round away from the light, and in here, just to try and have a little bit of a sense of 3D building up, and also helping to really make those areas where the light doesn't shine recede. So what I'm really drawing here is this arm by making the bit next to it go back. I might move my camera up a tiny bit so you can see the whole picture a bit better. So please don't hesitate to put in the chat if there's anything you want to know about my process, or about the story behind these rabbits, or anything. I'm always happy to have a chat. Right. Do the same here and here. There we go. And I'm just going to slightly define the edge of the rabbit's head like that. Now this rabbit will be slightly darker on this side as well because it doesn't get so much light there, and as it's just sort of snuggled around behind Soggy Rabbit. And there's a little bit of texture up on the top. I think I probably made the rabbit slightly flat-headed. I think I'm going to go in with that warm brown and just raise the head a tiny bit. It doesn't take much. I don't want to overcorrect, like I was saying about the overcorrecting, or thinking about which way you're going to go to correct. You know, if you've got a head that looks too big, you can make the head smaller, or the body bigger. And you need to really look at it from a distance and work out which way you want to go. And a top tip for when you're drawing people and things like that is you mark like the top and the bottom, and then always correct towards the middle, so never move the top of the head or the bottom of the feet. That's a good artists. Right. That will also be a bit more in shadow. Okay, so next, this is a really nice bit. So this is where I put in the texture of the fur. I'm going to do, there'll be one more layer of colour afterwards which will tone down this pen, because it is quite, I'll give it a good shake, it is quite pronounced. You can see it's quite a strong. So now this time I'm focusing, whereas I put the darks on the left, I'm going to focus this texture on the right as it catches the light. Not exclusively, but quite a lot. And also I'm going to use this pen to really show what is in front of what. So I've got that texture there, particularly on the top of Soggy Rabbit's head, which is really helping bring Soggy Rabbit forward in front of Okay, so there's the edge of Brown Rabbit's face, and I will also, I'm going to save for tomorrow's live stream the highlights on the rabbit's eye, because they're a really nice detail to add in at the end. So I'm going to add those in live tomorrow. So if you want to watch tomorrow, I'd love to see you. I'm going to be streaming on at least YouTube and maybe here, but I'm still kind of getting the hang of Twitch. I'm a total newbie. This is my first Twitch live stream. I've seen some amazing stuff on here, some fantastic artists, and I really like finding them on Instagram as well. Nice. So I'm on Instagram, please do find me, it's just Soggy Rabbit, and I have lots and lots of portraits of different soft toys. Some are look really nice and quite swish, like they've just stepped out of the box, and then a lot of my favourite ones are really quite shabby, like Soggy Rabbit here. So the brown rabbit's actually quite smart, having unfortunately been separated from its owner, I think really quite early on, giving giving a loving home to this rabbit. See, tomorrow, rabbit. Okay, so in these darker areas, I'm not going to do too much light, but I want a little bit just to give a sense of the roughness of Soggy Rabbit's texture. But there'll be quite a lot here where this light, which is on the edge of Soggy Rabbit here, bits of fur there. Okay. Now, again, I'm focusing on the side that the light is coming from. And the texture in that photo. The way it sits on that paw. It's a way of kind of bedding down the rabbit as well. Very dear paws. Okay, now let's have another look. How are we getting on this? I can also just slightly adjust outlines. So Soggy Rabbit's got a little kind of slight point on the top of his head there, which I can emphasise with this pen. I'm just going to give it a bit of a shake. Check it's alright. Sometimes it goes a bit splodgy after a shake. Don't we all? There we go, right. I like the way that's resting on that. I'm just kind of turning over that shoulder there. And then here I think this rabbit's got some really quite long fluff on that beautiful, well-loved ear, and there is a sense of that turning there. So hopefully you think you can see now how the that time we spent earlier getting the proportions right means that this really does look quite like these two particular rabbits, and that doesn't happen with the texture, it happens with the structure. And that's the same whatever you're drawing. Okay, so I've got this shoulder popping forward here, really going to town on there. And the same on this little bit of thigh. Bum. And the edge there. Okay, right. A few little bits, and but not too many. Okay, now I'm going to very slightly tone down those lights, but not too much because I quite like them. I think they're quite good. I'm going to use these are very slightly more gingery pencil, and I'm just kind of lightly touching over the whites to tone them down, and also it hides the last of that grey paper showing through. The grey paper is really cooling down the colour of that rabbit too much, I think. Move the camera right in so you can really see the when I'm colouring, you can hopefully see what I mean. So I'm keeping the white for the highlights, but just knocking it back a tiny bit so it's not so overpowering. Doing this. Right, and we're nearly finished at this point. So let's have a little look. I'm going to take here this. Right, I'm going to put the card on to check. Yep, that's going to fit fine. And I will have space down here for a title. It's going to be something like Soggy Rabbit and his friend. Soggy and friend, probably. I'm just going to put a bit of a line in there. And then tomorrow I will come back and do the highlight on the eye, and I will sign it and do the title, and I often put a heart in as well on the side. So last but not least, I'm just going to do a tiny bit more of this ink, hopefully not splodge it. Because the pencil just slightly sits on top of the ink, and so it loses its really definite darkest darks, and I just want to reinstate those really dark areas so that they don't lose their potency. Go here, get that lovely contrast between what's in the front and the back. So I'm not doing this on over all of the black, just the odd bit to give it a bit of take its definition back a little bit, or regain its definition. Okay, there we go. Right, there we are. So you can see here I've got the area where I'm going to write their names is just here. So I'm going to just check it with pencil first. Let's see, make sure I've got them the right. Soggy, I'm going to do a heart in the middle. Soggy and Bestie. Right, I can see from that I need to maybe start in a little bit, so that's why the pencil's so useful. Right, and I'm going to go in with the ink pen now. So here's my ink. So normally I do this at the beginning, and there is a slight risk that oh, it's got a very stiff lid. I think it's stuck. There is a slight risk that the ink will blob, and that's why usually I do that bit at the beginning of the drawing. But today I'm going to be living dangerously. So I've got my, do you remember I said I use a piece of paper to check that the pen is working nicely? So I'm dipping the pen in the ink. There we go, move that safely out of the way. Check that it's writing nicely. It is. Okay, and now I'm going to get my drawing. I'm going to move my camera up a little bit. Hopefully you can see that then. There we are. Okay. Right, Soggy and Bestie. Oh, this pen isn't particularly juicy, is it? Need another dip. These traditional tools can be quite unpredictable. Okay. Soggy, and I don't worry too much if these names don't come out perfectly, because this whole drawing your soft toy idea is all about loving the imperfections. And if I was stressing about getting really perfect, there we go. Oh, I need another dip. If I was stressing about getting really perfect calligraphy, that would be defeating the object. And really, I just want it to look real and handmade, and I think that's part of the charm. But preferably without an enormous blob. There we go, Soggy and Bestie. Immortalised. and we've got 2 more things to do. Can you guess what they are? Let's come back here and I can talk to you. So that's my camera there, just sitting on top of Soggy and Bestie. Okay, so I've got 2 more things to do. When you do a picture, it's always really nice to sign your work. Do you remember to sign your work? It's so good. Even if you don't want to put it on the front, you can sign on the back. And a lot of people like to put the date on as well. So later, when they're old and grey, they can remember how old they were when they did the picture. I really like looking back at people's early work. It's really interesting when you're looking at artists and if you like the stuff they do now, sometimes it's quite interesting to look at what they used to do. Okay, so the other thing I need to do is sign it. So I'm going to turn back to the camera so you can see. Here we are. Okay, so I'm going to hold it really close so you can see. I'm going to do a tiny little signature here. And then when that ink is dry, I'll rub out the pencil under Soggy and Bestie. Right, there we go. Don't know if you can hear that nice scratchy noise. Okay, so last thing is to put a highlight on Bestie's eye. Move that up close so you can see. So at the moment, Bestie's eyes are just a pool of black. And so what I'm going to do now is use this pen. I use a Posca pen. You can use any, you can use Sharpies, they're really good, white Sharpies. Give it a little shake. And I'll turn off so you can see. Right, so I'm using my test sheet, because these can be a bit blobby too. So that's what it's going to look like. There we go, nice and blobby. And remember I said the light is coming from the right, so I'm going to put those highlights on this side. One there, and can you see how it really makes those eyes sparkle? Okay, there we go. So I know I said we'd only got a couple more things to do, but move that down a little. Soggy and Bestie are finished. I'm going to colour in their heart when the ink's dry. But there they go, immortalised together forever. So thank you so much to everybody who asked for shout outs and who put in names. It was really lovely, and Bestie is extremely happy to have a name at last.
Here we are, nearly done. Final step is to colour in that heart. So I'm going to use the same blue pen that I used for Soggy Rabbit. I've rubbed out the pencil lines, and I'm going to just tone it down a little bit with a white pencil. These pencils are really good to blend. There we are. So nice, Soggy and Bestie immortalised together. So you can see this. These are the things I used. I used a traditional dipping pen and ink for the black. I used a normal pencil. I used 6B, sometimes less, for the sketching at the start, and a Posca pen for the highlights, and then various coloured pencils for colouring in, and just plain grey paper. So I hope that inspires you to have a go. It's really good fun and not as hard as it looks. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this has inspired you to have a go, and if you would like me to do your soft toy portrait, head over to my website. There's a link in the description and you can order them in a choice of sizes. Or if you want the fun of a live stream, you can go and join my interactive live stream on a Wednesday night. Okay, there we go, lots of choice, and I hope somewhere in there there's something that lights your spark and inspires you to pick up your pencils, pens and paper and have a go yourself. Bye.